Now at 11, a monumental shakeup in the race for the White House. Joe Biden will not be the Democratic nominee for president. In a letter posted on social media, the president said in part, "While it has been my intention to seek re-election, I believe it is in the best interest of my party and the country for me to stand down and to focus solely on fulfilling my duties as president for the remainder of my term." His decision comes amidst mounting pressure from voters, lawmakers, and his loved ones to step aside. Thanks for joining us here on NBC 10 Boston on this Sunday night, everybody. I'm Corey Smith.
And I'm Matt Pritchard. Lawmakers in Massachusetts were some of the first to call for Biden to step aside. Congressman Seth Moulton was one of them, and today he said he was excited and elated by the news. Representative Jake Auchincloss saying this represents a seismic shift in the race for the White House.
I think she'll pretty quickly unite the Democratic Party. Whether we have an open primary process or not, my suspicion is that she'll be pretty quick to consolidate support.
70% of Americans have said they wanted a change at the top of both tickets. Well, we've offered it. What are Republicans going to do?
Now, those calls, among others, followed Biden's shaky debate performance last month and the lackluster polling that followed it.
So maybe it was a surprise to you, or you saw this all coming. Either way, we are less than 4 months from Election Day, and the race for the White House looks drastically different.
Yeah, so where do we go from here? The president already made it known he wants Vice President Kamala Harris to take his spot as the presidential nominee. She responded saying, quote, "I am honored to have the president's endorsement, and my intention is to earn and win this nomination."
We have team coverage on this historic election shakeup. We begin with NBC 10's Erin Logan. She's live for us outside the State House with reaction from Democrats across New England. Erin?
Well, Corey, new at 11 tonight, New Hampshire's Democratic Party unanimously endorsing Harris as the Democratic nominee. But here in Massachusetts, a lot of mixed reaction. But many, including Governor Maura Healey, applaud President Biden's decision to drop out of the race. Just one day after Vice President Kamala Harris was in Provincetown speaking on behalf of the president, she's now just steps away from filling his shoes. Massachusetts politicians are reacting to the idea of her putting up a solid fight against Donald Trump.
Vice President Harris would be an extraordinary candidate, an aspiring candidate, and I think she really demonstrated that.
Kamala Harris was born in California to immigrant parents. In 2010, she was elected Attorney General in her home state. In 2017, she was elected to the U.S. Senate, and 3 years later became the first woman ever to be elected vice president. Now she's just shy of becoming the first woman of color to be nominated as the Democratic candidate for president.
I think that they haven't given her enough room to succeed.
Democratic strategist Jaquetta Van Zandt calls Harris capable and qualified, but she's concerned about Biden's decision to drop out of the race.
I don't think there's enough room to be able to turn around this race, and I think this is a setup. To throw her into this right now is unfair.
The timing is a little too late.
Republican strategist Ozzie Palomo feels having Harris instead of Biden against Trump won't really change the dynamics of the race.
I do think the messaging and kind of the public forums, she'll be a step up from them, but I don't think Donald Trump's going to shy away from attacking her on the Biden legacy, given that she was by his side from day one.
And Massachusetts Democratic Party Chair Steve Kerrigan says he fully supports Harris. Harris is expected to speak tomorrow at 11:30 at an NCAA event recognizing championship teams. Live outside the State House tonight, Erin Logan, NBC 10 Boston.
All right, Erin, thank you. It's been less than 12 hours since the president endorsed Kamala Harris, so here is the state of play tonight. The vice president has been reaching out to state party chairs and delegates across the country to shore up support. She's received endorsements from a slew of Democratic governors, including some who were seen as potential alternatives if the president stepped aside. The progressive donation platform, Act Blue, says it has raised nearly $50 million from small dollar donors in the 5 hours after Biden endorsed Harris. And while she appears to be on a glide path to the nomination, multiple sources tell NBC News Senator Joe Manchin is considering running for president, despite him having left the Democratic Party in May. All right, let's go ahead and bring in NBC 10 political commentator Sue O'Connell. Sue, we're less than a month away from the Democratic National Convention. What should we expect from the party and the campaign now that President Biden has endorsed Vice President Harris?
So, Corey, of course, it's all very exciting. The endorsements, the money, everything is shiny and new. But the Democrats have an administrative process that they have to execute here. The Democratic Party, not an arm of the government, and they, just like the Republican Party, they have their own rules. So people voted in the Democratic primaries. But guess what? They were voting for delegates, not actual candidates. But most of those delegates can support whomever they want when they cast their vote for the nominee, which, by the way, may happen virtually before the in-person convention due to an Ohio law regarding getting on the ballot. So the devil is in the details, but the Democrats are anxious and excited to get this nomination process set and get a nominee as soon as possible.
Well, Sue, let's say that Harris becomes the Democratic nominee after the convention. What are you saying right now to Donald Trump's campaign manager about handling all of this?
Yeah, I would be saying you have got to figure out how you cannot make this a campaign between a prosecutor and a sexual offender. And I'm serious about that. I'd say on the offense, attack Harris on the immigration work she did for the Biden administration, while staying away from her strongest issue, which is going to be difficult, abortion rights. It's a problem. Harris is best when she's prosecuting someone, so Trump's luck about avoiding interaction with another prosecutor this year has just run out.
All right, Sue, thank you very much for that insight. As always, we do appreciate it. So we've heard from the president, the vice president, state and local officials, but what do Massachusetts voters think about Biden's decision?
Yeah, NBC 10's Jennifer Sanguano went to find out and brings us this report.
He's been a great president. It's the right choice, though.
I know that this is something that would probably be a really hard decision for him and the people who support him. But I also think it's like a true measure of what kind of leader he is.
While commending Biden's choice to step aside from this year's presidential race, some people are left feeling his ability to choose was taken.
I feel that he's been pushed away, and being elderly doesn't make you incompetent.
Beatrice was planning to vote for Biden as she considered him a great candidate to face the now Republican Party nominee, former President Donald Trump.
He's a servant. You know, he's a service person. I always find that his intent is to help the people.
But other voters are excited to see what comes next for the Democratic Party and have high expectations for the new candidate.
They're going to really just have to coalesce and figure out, what the path forward is going to be for the next candidate. I think you're already seeing a lot of the endorsements that are kind of coming in.
I want to see like fever. I want to see someone who is able to dispute lies, right, and falsehoods.
Now we're less than 4 months away for the elections, and some of these voters tell me they think that's more than enough time for that new candidate to lay their proposals on the table and win their vote for November. Reporting in Boston, Jennifer Sanguano, NBC 10 Boston.
And as voters try and figure out what they're going to do this November, former President Donald Trump himself wasted no time voicing his opinion on Biden's withdrawal.
NBC 10's Darren Botello continues our team coverage with response from Team Trump and the GOP.
Republican and conservative-leaning political leaders, also voters, sounding off just after President Biden's announcement on Sunday he's dropping out of the presidential race.
Well, I kind of saw it coming. He's aged. He's past his prime. I feel he couldn't really run the country as is.
Former President Donald Trump posting on his Truth Social saying in part, quote, "Crooked Joe Biden was not fit to run for president and is certainly not fit to serve." Then he spoke with NBC News during a phone interview saying Joe Biden is the worst president in the history, adding that if he's elected in November, he'll, quote, "fix what Biden has done." House Speaker Mike Johnson picking up on Trump's sentiments from there, posting on X, formerly known as Twitter, "At this unprecedented juncture in American history, we must be clear about what just happened. The Democrat Party forced the Democrat nominee off the ballot just over 100 days before the election, having invalidated the votes of more than 14 million Americans who selected Joe Biden to be the Democrat nominee for president. The self-proclaimed party of democracy has proven exactly the opposite."
It upends the entire 2024 presidential race.
Thomas Whalen, a professor at Boston University, says this also upends the Trump campaign strategy, now with a new, potentially younger candidate to face.
The age issue suddenly works against them. That's what they were counting on to use against Joe Biden.
And before Biden's announcement, a senior Trump advisor told NBC News that the campaign preferred the current president stay in the race because that's the matchup they've been planning for. Biden's decision means a new strategy for both Democrats and Republicans.
All right, thank you very much, Darren. Be sure to stay with us for continuing coverage of President Biden's historic announcement. We're going to have live updates on air and online at NBC10Boston.com. And we want to thank Matt for being here tonight on what was a long day.
An eventful day. More to come.